Shall we move off of Hank?
Yes, absolutely.
And on to Claude?
Absolutely.
Claude Giroux is going to sit down with his agent, Pat Brisson, at the All-Star festivities this weekend to decide whether he'll waive his no-movement clause, which would allow him to be dealt at the trade deadline. If that does happen, which team do you think would be the best fit, and what would it take?
Okay, well, yeah, it's really interesting because this is a really I think it's nuanced and a little bit more complex than most of this kind of situation. You know, Claude Giroux has been a career-long Philadelphia Flyer. He's their captain. He's the heartbeat of the franchise. He's been their best player this year.
Yeah.
Like by 72,000 miles.
Yeah.
And
give or take a couple hundred.
Yeah, might be more. And he's entrenched, right?
Yeah.
Like he's part of their fabric. He's part of the but he's part of the organization's fabric. I mean, he's not on the Bobby Clark, Bill Barber, Bernie Perrant level.
Yeah.
But he's in that second tier of all-time Flyers with, Eric Lindros and Eric Desjardins, guys like that.
Yeah.
He's in that second tier of all-time great Flyers.
Right.
So what does he do then? Does he say, okay, I want to be a Flyer. I want to be part of the solution here. I want to fix this and, try and win here. Or does he basically say, it's kind of hopeless here.
Yeah.
And do I move on? So that's what he's going to discuss with Pat Brisson this weekend.
Yeah.
And they're going to come up with a strategy as to how they're going to move forward with this. This will be his call entirely.
Mm-hmm. If he has a no move.
Yeah, he has a no move.
Yeah.
But I mean, the Flyers, I know this for a fact, the Flyers will not pressure him to waive that no move. It's going to have to be his, the impetus is going to have to come from him, So, either way, I know the Flyers are okay with it. If Claude Giroux says I'm staying and don't trade me, even though they could get assets back for him, they'll be fine with it. And if he says, yeah, I think I want to move on, then they're going to do it. So, so he's the one driving the bus here. So it'll be entirely up to him. So that being said, I look at a team, which I think a good fit is the GM in Philadelphia, Chuck Fletcher, his old team, the Minnesota Wild.
Right.
They've been dying for a center, with all due respect to, Mike Hartman and Joel Eriksson Ek and Nico Sturm and guys like that. They don't have anything even approximating a number one center.
No.
Like not even close.
No.
And I think that Giroux could be that guy. I think Claude Giroux could be that guy. Yeah, exactly. I think Giroux could be that guy. They've been dying for like someone, a centerman who can drive play and play both ends of the ice and create offense. I mean, they have guys who can do some of those things, but they don't have guys who can do all of those things. And Claude Giroux can do all of those things.
Yeah.
So to me, I think that's the place where there's the best fit. And to me, I think it would take probably, a Matthew Boldy type of situation. And I'm thinking maybe Matthew Boldy and say a second.
Right.
With Philadelphia taking on as much of the cap responsibility as they can.
Yeah.
And then, if you really want to push it and you want to get this guy in and you want to clear out salary, say you move Victor Rask the other way, who's on a $4 million deal in the last year of his deal. You move him to Philadelphia and then maybe it goes to Boldy in a first rounder.
Yeah.
That's a high price. Like that's a high price, but you are getting Claude Giroux. And I think we also have to realize here is that this is purely a rental.
Yeah.
Like purely a rental.
Yeah.
Like he's not going to make any decision on where he's going until after the season. Like even if he stays in Philadelphia for the rest of this year, it's not like don't take that as, oh yeah, he's going to re-sign and he's going to be here for another X number of years.
Yeah.
He would purely and truly be a 3-month rental.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you on the rental part. And of course, it's this term is thrown around all the time, but it's never more cogent than it is with, or more applicable than it is with Claude Giroux, which is he has earned the right to choose his future.
He absolutely has.
Right. Yeah. I think that where there's a little bit of disparity is that I don't necessarily think that Claude Giroux is your number one center. I think that he could be on the first line as a wing, but not necessarily as a center. Mm-hmm. And as a center, he's better suited for the second or third line. But we did kind of have a similar thought process, which is looking at the team that is not at the top of their division, but has a tough sledding in the playoffs, right, so to speak, right?
Right.
And so I take a look at the Toronto Maple Leafs as that team. They're in a division with Tampa and Florida. And they're going to have to go through one of those two guys, it seems. They're
both of them, probably.
Or potentially
both of them.
Exactly.
Like almost certainly both of them.
Right. And when you look at the playoffs last year, and I know that a lot of people are on the bandwagon of Toronto needs defense, but when you look at the playoffs last year, it wasn't their defense that really sunk them, right? They weren't getting lit up for 8 goals a night. And now all due respect to the fact that Jack Campbell let in that one bad goal from Brendan Gallagher, the fact that they were even in that situation was because they weren't able to find the scoring, and especially with John Tavares being out of the lineup. Claude Giroux fits in as your third line center. Undisputed. And he, like I said last week about who is your Nick Bonino on your team, right? When Pittsburgh won the cup with Nick Bonino having a 30-goal season that year and then he was the third line center. He is your Nick Bonino.
Okay.
He is an incredible offensive talent. He's pretty good defensively. He's either your third line center, or if your first line isn't going, then you can put him on your first line wing, your second line wing, or if a center gets injured, he can easily slot into that center spot, whether it's Tavares or Matthews. I just think that defense didn't sink them in the playoffs last year. Campbell is not having the best, go of it lately, but he's having a good year. Yep. There's no reason to expect that he's going to collapse in the playoffs.
Why is there no reason to expect that? Why? Like no reason?
Okay.
I mean, he hasn't been great lately.
Yeah.
Like he's got 100 games.
Right.
I mean, I'm not sitting here saying, yeah, the same old. Jack Campbell's going to collapse in the playoffs and the Leafs will be out of the first round.
Yeah.
But to sit here and say there's no reason to expect that, I think there still is.
Let me recant that. There is no more reason to expect that Jack Campbell collapses than any other goalie not named Andrei Vasilevsky.
Right. Okay.
He's about as sure a thing as I could possibly guess for the playoffs. And as a matter of fact, you were listening in. I was just recording a podcast with Paul Campbell, and we were talking about Vasilevsky, and he was talking about how he always ramps it up towards the end of the year and into the playoffs. Other than Vasilevsky, there's very few goalies. I mean, Colorado's going in with Darcy Kemper. Do you take Darcy Kemper or do you take Jack Campbell?
I would. I don't know, because I don't think it matters as much in Colorado. They don't need superhuman goaltending.
No, you're
right.
In
the playoffs, they just need a goalie to be good. Yeah. That's all Colorado needs.
Yeah.
All Colorado needs in the playoffs is for Darcy Kemper to be good.
Right.
They don't need him to be great. Yeah. They don't need him to be otherworldly. They don't need him to steal a bunch of games.
Yeah.
They just need him to not lose games.
Yeah.
That's it.
So, but that's to my point, which is that it's essentially a coin flip. For Jack Campbell, Darcy Kemper. So I'm just saying that Campbell, there's no reason to expect other than just the fact that goaltending is difficult to predict notoriously.
Right.
So how do you make that money work? Obviously, we both are coming from a place of Philadelphia has to eat half the salary. There's no two ways about that. Yeah. Giroux doesn't move until Philadelphia does that. But Toronto has Peter Mrazek, and Philadelphia has Carter Hart, a young potential superstar goaltender that needs a solid backup / mentor. Peter Mrazek would be about as good a backup / mentor as I could think of. It does put Toronto into a very thin situation goaltending wise, but if it gets you Claude Giroux and you're not really worried about missing the playoffs at this point, if you're Toronto, then you muddle through with what you've got, and then you go with Jack Campbell, and you've got that Claude Giroux as your third line center or one of the top 6 wingers.
You've still got to go out and get a reliable veteran goaltender. You have to.
Yeah, I mean, like, but that could be Craig Anderson. That could be anybody. Like, I wouldn't be that concerned if you've got a number one. You
got zero depth in goaltending, and I'd be concerned. I would be concerned right now about Toronto's goaltending.
But what I'm saying is that even if your backup goalie is a guaranteed loss night, you've got a bit of a cushion in terms of your playoff picture.
Okay.
Right?
Team that hasn't won a round since 2003? Seriously, though, a team that hasn't won a playoff round since 2003 is going to say that?
Listen, I'm just being nice to Toronto because I live in Toronto and I don't want and I do a Habs podcast and I write for a Habs organization. I'm tired of getting beat up every time that I leave my house, okay?
Well, no, yeah, okay.
I want people to see me and say, "Yeah, that was the guy that was high on Toronto."
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
But I mean, the Toronto thing makes sense.
Yeah.
With Claude Giroux for sure.
Yeah.
If they can make it work.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. Money. Claude Giroux is making over $8 million this year.
Well, his cap hits, $8 million.
Pardon me. Yes,
his
cap.
Salary's only $5 million, but his cap hits $8 million.
Yeah.
But you get down to March 23rd, you've got how much of the season left after that? You've got basically
about 28 games or something like that.
No, you've got season ends April 29th if it ends on time. So that gives you 29 days plus another 8, so 37 days.
Yeah.
So that mitigates it a bit because you're only taking on that portion of it, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah. So moving on.
Or you just put a bunch of guys on LTI until the playoffs start. Oh, John Tavares.
$8 million over cap.
I hurt my knee.
$8 million over cap.
That's number one bullshit.
Yeah. It's like a friend of mine's big Leafs homer. He said if Toronto loses, this was going into the playoffs last year, he goes, if Toronto loses, this is a BS tournament. It's COVID, asterisks behind the team. And if Toronto wins, then this was the hardest Stanley Cup to ever win, and this was the most important one that they could ever do, right?
Right. Okay.